Rome ruled the world, but it wasn't just power that kept them on top. It was something much more sinister. We've made videos about how Rome's military might conquered the known world. But today, we're going to reveal Rome's dark secret. Rome's real secret to success was fear. They instilled terror in their enemies and used it as a weapon to keep their enemies at bay. This is the story of how fear built the Roman Empire. Fear was Rome's most effective weapon. Rome's legions were the most powerful in the ancient world, but even they knew that war is not always about strength. Sometimes it's about scaring the other guy. If the enemy thinks you're too scary to mess with, then they won't attack you. And no one was as scary as Rome. Emperor Nero ruled Rome at a time when the empire was very unstable. There were rebellions and civil wars everywhere. So Nero did what any good Roman emperor would do. He put on a show of power. In 64, a fire broke out in Rome. Some say Nero started it to clear the city for his new real estate development. Others say it was just an unlucky accident. Either way, the fire lasted for 6 days, leveling most of the city. But while the citizens were suffering, Nero saw an opportunity. He used the disaster to take even more power for himself. The grateful citizens looked to him as a savior. And if you can strike fear into the hearts of your own people, you can conquer an empire. The streets of Rome were a place for the powerful to flex their might and keep the public in line. Public punishments were a form of entertainment for the Romans. And if you didn't behave, you could end up in the center of the action. One wrong move and you might be put to death in front of a crowd. What better way to keep people in check than by reminding them that they could die at any moment? In the Roman Empire, the emperors hosted gladiator games in massive arenas like the Colosseum. These games were a feast for the eyes, a display of raw human emotion as men fought to the death for the amusement of the crowd. But there was more to these games than met the eye. The bloodlust satisfied. The crowds roared with excitement. But beyond the cheers, there was a darker purpose at play. The games were a form of entertainment, sure, but also a tool for political distraction. While the common folk were distracted by the spectacle of the games, the emperors kept a close eye on the senators. Any ambitious politicians hoping to overthrow the emperor would be watched closely. And if they showed any signs of plotting, they would be dealt with swiftly and brutally. After all, what better way to eliminate a threat than to have them torn limb from limb in the very same arena where they once plotted so securely? Gladiators were the elite soldiers of Rome's army. They were trained to fight with swords, spears, and shields. But they were also trained in the art of terror. When the gladiators weren't fighting in the arena, they were out in the streets of Rome, keeping order. They were basically Rome's version of the Gestapo, a secret police force that kept an eye on the population. They were the ultimate symbol of Rome's power. And the mere sight of those terrifying warriors was enough to keep most people in line. If you were a soldier in the Roman army, you had to be brave. That was the only way to survive. The Romans took discipline very seriously, and there was no room for cowards. Soldiers who ran away from battle were often put to death. This may sound harsh, but it was effective. It ensured that every single soldier in the Roman army was willing to fight and die for Rome. Rome conquered many nations, and each victory brought more power and wealth to the empire. As Rome grew, so did its army. Soon, Rome was a multicultural empire with soldiers from all over the known world. But no matter where they came from, every soldier in the Roman army was trained to be ruthless and efficient. They were taught to have no mercy on their enemies and to strike fear into their hearts. When a legion of Roman soldiers descended on a city, the people knew they were in for a world of hurt. The Romans were disciplined, well-trained, and merciless. They were also very organized. Each soldier knew his role in the army and what was expected of him. This made the Roman army a very powerful fighting force, and it also helped them to instill terror in their enemies. When the Romans attacked, they didn't just want to defeat their enemies, They wanted to break them. They wanted to make them so afraid of Rome that they would never attack again. And for the most part, it worked. The conquered nations respected Rome out of terror. They knew that if they messed with Rome, they would be next in line to be destroyed. Rome spread their propaganda far and wide. They used stories and images to make their enemies look like monsters. They told stories of Rome's great victories, and they exaggerated their own strength. They also used artists to create images of their enemies that were meant to be scary. All of this was done to make their enemies look as evil as possible. It was a way to dehumanize them and make it easier to go to war against them. So the real secret to Rome's success was fear. Rome wasn't just a powerful empire, it was a terrifying one. Their soldiers were trained to be ruthless, and their propaganda was designed to scare the living daylights out of their enemies. But fear can be a double-edged sword. It can unite people, but it can also destroy them. Now check out, how did Rome turn from republic to empire? Or watch, how did the Roman Empire fall